Welcome to Tales with Meaning. Today, we bring you a story that starts with a simple trip into the world, but quickly turns into a struggle for survival. Imagine yourself deep in the mountains, where every sound feels amplified, and every decision could mean the difference between life and death. This story isn't just about battling the elements, it's about a man's battle with himself and the realization that adaptability is not just a skill, but a necessity for survival. The twists and turns will keep you on the edge of your seat as you wonder, will he make it out alive? Jack had always been an adventurer. He prided himself on his love for nature and the way he could navigate through the densest forests and the highest mountains with ease. He had climbed the Rockies, trekked through the Amazon, and even braved the icy terrains of Alaska. So when his friends suggested a solo trip to the Appalachian Mountains, Jack thought it would be just another notch on his belt. But this time, things were different. The journey started off like any other. The weather was mild, and the trail was well marked. Jack's backpack was filled with supplies, enough food for a week, a small tent, and all the tools he needed to make his journey comfortable. He set off at dawn, the sun casting a golden hue over the landscape. The first few days were uneventful, even peaceful. Jack took in the sights, the sounds, the sheer beauty of the untouched wilderness. But on the fourth day, the weather took an unexpected turn. Dark clouds rolled in, and the wind began to howl through the trees. Jack, experienced as he was, knew that a storm was brewing. He set up camp early, choosing a spot that was sheltered from the wind. As night fell, the storm hit with a vengeance. Lightning cracked across the sky, and the rain came down in torrents. Jack huddled in his tent, the thin fabric barely holding back the elements. By morning, the storm had passed, but it left behind a landscape that was unrecognizable. The trail was washed out, the trees had been uprooted, and the ground was a muddy mess. Jack knew he was in trouble. His map was useless now. The landmarks he had been using were gone. He tried to stay calm, telling himself that he had been in worse situations before. He decided to head west, towards what he thought was the nearest town. But as the hours passed, the landscape became more treacherous. The ground was unstable, and he kept slipping in the mud. His food supply was dwindling, and his water was running low. The cold was starting to seep into his bones, and Jack knew he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. That's when the first signs of panic started to set in. Jack realized that he was lost, truly lost. He was miles from civilization, with no way of knowing which direction would lead him to safety. He thought about turning back, retracing his steps, but the storm had left everything so altered that he doubted he could find his way back to his original camp. He had two choices: stay put and hope someone would find him, or keep moving and hope he stumbled upon help. Jack chose to keep moving. He knew the risks, but staying in one place felt like giving up. As days turned into a week, Jack's situation grew more desperate. He rationed his food, but it was clear he wouldn't last much longer. He started to lose weight, and his energy levels plummeted. The terrain became even more unforgiving, with steep cliffs and rocky outcrops. He was running on pure adrenaline and the will to survive. On the 9th day, Jack's body started to betray him. He was dehydrated, his muscles were cramping, and his vision was starting to blur. But he kept pushing forward, driven by the faint hope that he might still make it out alive. And that's when he heard it, the faint sound of rushing water. He followed the sound, stumbling through the underbrush until he came upon a river. The sight of the river renewed his hope. Water meant life, and where there was water, there was usually a way out. Jack drank deeply, filling his canteen and letting the cool water revive him. He followed the river downstream, knowing that it would eventually lead to civilization. But the journey was far from over. The river was treacherous, with fast currents and hidden rocks. Jack had to be careful not to slip or be swept away. He walked 4 days, his feet sore and blistered, his body aching from the constant exertion. But the sound of the water kept him going, reminding him that he was on the right track. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jack saw something that made his heart leap: an old, abandoned cabin on the riverbank. It was weathered and run down, but it was shelter. Jack practically ran to it, throwing open the door and collapsing inside. He found some old canned food in the cupboards and a rusty pot to boil water. For the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. But he knew he wasn't safe yet. Jack spent the night in the cabin, but he didn't sleep well. The fear of what might happen next kept him awake. He knew he had to keep moving, but he also knew that he couldn't push his body much further. The next morning, he gathered his strength and set off again, following the river downstream. And then, just as he was about to give up hope, he saw it: a road. A small, dirt road winding through the trees. Jack could hardly believe his eyes. He staggered onto the road, his legs barely able to carry him. And then, in the distance, he saw headlights. The car stopped, and a man got out. Jack could barely speak, his voice hoarse from days without proper food or water. But the man understood. He helped Jack into the car and drove him to the nearest town, where he was taken to a hospital and treated for dehydration and exhaustion. Jack survived, but the experience changed him. He realized that no matter how prepared you think you are, nature can always surprise you. And in those moments, adaptability is the key to survival. Jack returned to the mountains eventually, but with a newfound respect for the power of the wilderness and the understanding that survival isn't just about strength or knowledge, it's about being able to adapt to whatever challenges come your way. Thank you for listening to this tale on Tales with Meaning. Jack's story reminds us of the importance of adaptability, not just in the wilderness, but in every aspect of life. When faced with unexpected challenges, it's our ability to adjust and keep moving forward that ensures our survival. We hope this story has inspired you to embrace change and stay resilient in the face of adversity. Remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving through the challenges life throws at us. Until next time, stay safe, stay adaptable, and thank you for being with us today.